Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Matthew. If this is your first time on the channel, I hope you will do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be creating a lot of content to help you in your real estate businesses. In this case, we are going to jump in here with Canva, one of the best tools for real estate agents and marketing. And specifically, we're going to be looking at building presentations for your client meetings. So let's just jump right in. All right, as we jump into Canva and presentations, there's a few basic things I think are important for us to know and to go over as we go through this workshop. We're going to talk about basic presentation design for a few seconds, and then we're going to talk about use cases of why you would need a presentation as an agent, some design and Canva elements, and then a couple delivery tricks at the end to make that presentation feel a little more alive depending on what type of presentation you're doing. I am going to be demonstrating Canva through my account, which is a Canva Pro account. They run about, I think it's 119 a year or something like that. And to me, this is one of the important investments in your business because Canva is so versatile and does so much for you. The Pro version is better. Not selling any products. I don't make any money off the recommendation, but you will see one or two things that I will drop in to our class that are only on Canva Pro. Everything else will certainly be part of the free program if that's what you're using. And a couple use cases as to why we would want presentations and specifically what we would create in Canva. Listings, of course, are one of the default ones that everybody thinks about, but those buyers deserve a great presentation too. And they are talking to multiple agents before they settle on one. And so buyer presentations are another solid case. Matter of fact, probably a better distinguishing use case than others because so few buyer agents are treating their buyers with the respect of actually doing a full-on presentation, whereas almost every listing agent does a full presentation for sellers. Also listing inquiry responses. So if someone wants more information about the home, maybe they're relocating out of the area, you could actually have a slide deck or presentation set up that you could share or just send them a link to where they could go through some of the area information and things like that. Consumer classes, it's very popular among some agents for lead generation to do like first-time home buyer classes or condo seller classes or whatever it is that you do that you may have a chance to speak in front of a consumer group, and then also to embed some of these presentations in your website. So maybe you have market statistics or best restaurants or 6 things to know when you're buying new construction. These presentations you can build in Canva can then be placed in and embedded in your website or shared by other means. And we start with actually storyboarding. I think one of the things that is most daunting for real estate agents when they're creating a presentation is like, oh my gosh, what needs to be in there? And there's countless tools and resources about what should be included in each presentation. That's going to be a different segment. That's not necessarily going to be this particular class or presentation. But storyboarding is a way where I can go create all the elements I want and then put them in the right order to tell a story for the consumer. And all of these presentations were basically storytelling, either about our value proposition as a listing agent or as their buyer agent, or why certain types of processes or loan types are best for them. Whatever the presentation is you're doing, it's telling a story. And I'm going to show you one of the ways you can do that very logically, very easily in Canva presentations. And again, you're the storyteller. The slides that we're going to be presenting in the Canva presentation we're putting together is basically an asset to help you, a visual aid, if you will, because we know retention is higher when information is delivered using visuals than just spoken word or written word. So this is to help you tell a story. And I make that distinction because I see a lot of agents when they are creating visual assets for their marketing, put every word they want to utter on the screen or copy and paste a lot of stuff on there. And that is not going to be the best use of your presentations. And in this case, we're talking primarily, I'm dealing with visual aids for virtual meetings. So if I'm doing a relocation meeting with a client who's in California and I'm here in Virginia, or I'm doing a listing presentation for a seller, maybe I've already visited the home, or we're doing a preliminary meeting, or for a buyer who's thinking about working with me and really just can't find the time, around their busy schedule this week to meet. We could do it by Zoom or some other asset. And so I want these visual assets to be useful both in-person presentation and also virtual. And in doing that, it means I need to have and consider different sizes of presentations based on the needs that I have. There are 3 primary presentation sizes that Canva offers. The one is 16 by 9, which is what you're seeing now in the slides that I'm using to present on. The next is 4 by 3, and you can imagine that being the iPad in portrait mode The last one is mobile, where somebody can look on their phone. And so, for example, when I'm doing a class or I'm doing a listing or buyer presentation, I use 16:9. It's the most common presentation. It gives me the most real estate to put content on. If I am doing something like and we'll talk about this in a bit, when I'm taking my presentation and creating an ebook out of it, I want it in 4:3. And if I have maybe relocation information that I want to share with consumers, I would probably do it in a mobile size, so that I know 70% of consumers actually use their smartphone when they're conducting their home search or doing real estate stuff. So I would want to have something I can just shoot to them as a presentation. They can maybe follow along on their own and do it in a mobile size. So those are the three primary sizes we're dealing with. A couple reminders about designing slides, and this is a very high level reminder. One, when you're doing this, essentially a pitch deck or your visual aids for your presentation, as a general rule of thumb, probably prior to 3 or 4 years ago, we would say no more than 6 elements per slide, like 6 moving parts. If you look at this slide, there are basically 3. There is the title that says basic slide design tips. There's a little minimalist graphic to the left with the rocket ship. And the next one, the next element on the right-hand side is some words. And in this case, those words, because they're all kind of lumped together, making a complete thought, I'm going to categorize those as one element, but it really could be 2 because they're broken into half. So in this case, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 elements here. We really want to keep it down to 3. Now, remember that consumer, if you want to create your presentation so you can deliver them both virtually as well as in person. And so if you're doing it in person on your iPad or you're doing it virtually through Zoom, that consumer doesn't want to have to squint and get really close to your device in order to see things. And so bold elements, only a few elements per slide, help you tell the story better. And again, this is just an adjunct to help you the visual part of keeping track of what you're talking about in your presentation. And you can use as many slides as you want. I mean, we're not printing these out anymore. It's not, 1999 where we were printing out pages and putting them in page protectors and putting them in 3-ring binders and flipping them over in front of consumers. That was such a headache. You're going to be using this almost exclusively digitally. So it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't make the book thicker, and it lets me jump around to things that may be more appropriate for the consumer, or edit things, as I'll show you in just a bit when we get into the actual Canva part of this. And you want to have a brand kit. We want to keep things pretty consistent to our color scheme and font choices. Brand kit is a premium only service in Canva. You have to have Canva Pro for it. But if you do have it, you can actually preset your font, your logos, your color schemes, and easily click a button and add that to whatever presentation you're creating. But you do want to keep some continuity and consistency in your design. And with all of that said, now we're going to jump into Canva and actually spend a few minutes talking about the actual process of creating a presentation. All right, everybody. So we're here now in Canva, and I've logged into my home screen. And presumably, if you're watching this video, you probably have a Canva account. You have most likely been in there and played a little bit. So I'm only going to go through some basics. There's lots of things that Canva does, and I'm trying to focus just on our presentations here. So certainly watch for other tutorials. Check out the tutorials Canva does, some other things to find those resources. One of the things that I noted in the opening to this video or to this tutorial is that there are some pro versions. Those are things that are only available if you pay. Again, I think it's $120, maybe $150 a year. It's very inexpensive for what you get. I think it should be a primary tool for a reagent to have for your content marketing. But those things that you see with the little crown here, anything that has a crown on it is for the pro version only. There'll be a few things, maybe 3 or 4 things that I do touch on during this tutorial that I think are good for this. The first thing I'm going to start with is the brand kit. And so you can see here with the paid version, there's a brand kit. And I find this very important and a huge time saver. So in my brand kit, I have chosen my logo in different colors. I've added different color palettes to make sure I stay consistent with my colors throughout my presentations. And then I have saved my favorite fonts over here. And so I have 3 primary fonts that I use. It doesn't exclude all other fonts, but it does allow me to go back to these to be consistent. The logos here are things that I created on another program. It's not something that can be done in Canva, although Canva does have a logo kit that you could try out. So again, I'm going to come back to brand kit later on. So I just want to show you where it was here. Now I'm going to go back to home. And I think for this tutorial, we're going to start with making it easy for everybody. We're going to start with looking for real estate presentations. When we do a search here in presentations, you can see a number of presentations come up. Now, as I mentioned in the intro to this part of the video, there are different sizes here, and I am looking specifically for templates for the 16:9 presentations. So I'm going to go back here for a second. I'm going to go to presentations and click on the presentation button and then search for real estate presentations. Okay. And then you can see that I come up with whatever I come up with here. So here's the first one. Now this gives me the first feel for the cover. And if I hover over this, you see this is a pro version. So this is something that's paid, but I'm going to click on that. And you notice that there are 10 slides here, and down here is the template for this. You can also look and see that there are other non-pro versions. So I'm going to go here to this one. This nice green kind of contemporary looking one with the octagon here. Notice that when I click on it, there's a number of slides. And I'm going to click up here where it says apply all 12 pages, and it's going to add it down here to this bottom row. But also notice again that there is a template style guide here. And so I can apply that to whatever slides I have in here. I'm going to get rid of this one real quick. That's from the previous slide. And I'm going to click here and add all 12 of these slides here. Now, again, it's ready for you to go. This is giving you some workspace to set up. So in our workspace that we're here in Canva, there's a few things to look at. Again, if you add slides, so if I go and add a new slide here, and I don't know, chose to be teal, and I go back over to template style and click on that, it'll change this slide that I added to match the theme of all the other slides. So if you have other slides you've created in other presentations and you want to import them, but all make them look the same, you could apply that style guide to all of them, and it'll change font color and style. All right. And so now I've added the template here, and I want to talk a little bit about this workspace. So over here, you have on your sidebar a number of different features you can look at. So templates is, well, just that. Elements is where I spend a lot of time. These are elements I can add or edit. Uploads are things that you've uploaded. Text would be, again, adding text and content. Projects would be the folder for other things that you're working on, a way to organize. Style guides, again, I go to style guides. It shows me some things that I've worked on before. So for example, and since this is what I'm using just for training, I don't mind kind of devastating it, but I like this particular color scheme. Notice when I click on that color scheme, it applied it to all the slides. And so if teal wasn't your color or green wasn't your color, you can choose that. And under styles, there's a lot of guides here. What I love about this, there's gonna be so much I tell you I love about Canva, is that Canva has already had professionals put together matching colors. There is a, beyond this particular program, if you're doing design, there are compatible colors that go together. Not everything does. And you can find it here. And, you know, again, you can look just quickly to see the color spectrum and the font use of each one of these quickly to go through. I don't know why, but I hate yellow for marketing purposes and for content. But they have a lot of yellow here. And so I just skip over that because I don't want to see the yellow here. I could go change it if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. So I'm going to change this back to, yeah, I'm going to use this. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but I like this color scheme. I'm going to use that. And maybe not the purple. So if I keep coloring it, it'll change primary colors on there. Like this. All right. And so I like white space. So we're going to stick with this one. And then over here, I've added pixels and pixabay. These are stock photo systems or accounts that you can go and look for royalty-free graphics to add to your presentation. I have charts. I've added my Instagram, Google Maps, and some other things that we'll cover later. And then down here, I have my logos and my brand kit. So I'm going to go back over here, and you can see I have my logos over here. And let's say I want to add a logo to this presentation. Since I already have my logos pre-added, I can do that and get rid of the preemptive one, or I'm sorry, the pre-provided one, I guess, whatever you want to call that. And I'm just going to line it up here. And so this is the left-hand side toolbar. We're going to come back to this a lot during this tutorial. And then I've got my workspace here. Now notice when I hover over anything, it is selecting that element. Each one of these parts and pieces are considered an element. And there's some guidelines. So you can see when I move it around, those purple lines tell me when I'm on the outside edge of the logo or align to it, or if I want to align and center, notice that the purple line shows up and I can either center under the words above, or I can center it in the whole page. And it tells me when everything is where it needs to be. So I like a nice alignment to everything. In this case, we're using left justified or left side alignment. And so we're going to keep that. Now, so that is choosing the different elements. Now, when you look at this top toolbar here, this up here at the top, you can notice as I change elements or click on elements, it changes the interactive toolbar on top. And so in this case, I've got these shapes here that we're looking at. And when I click on shapes, it gives me other suggestions or options for shapes that it'll change what I'm working on too. If I don't like it, what I've done, I can go up here to the top and click on undo or hit Control Z and it'll undo whatever you're working on. Now I'm going back over here to the shapes. The next button over is the color. And so let's say that this is all good and matching, but I want to try a little something different as a highlight color here. And I click on colors. Now on any element that you click on, when you click on colors, there's going to be the document colors up here at the top. This is telling you that color palette that we chose earlier is available in various colors and shades. And so they all, again, are pre-done and pre-matched. So if I want to change and customize some of these colors, when I click on the element, I go back up here to color, and I've got the document. Next, I have my personal brand. So these are the color palettes I showed you earlier that I've already chosen for my personal brand. And you can have multiple brand kits. So I have one for my company, and then I have one for myself. And it contains the logos, the fonts, the colors, and a couple other elements that I use consistently. Again, recognizing here that there's a little crown. This is a pro version only. The next thing, and this is incredibly cool, the next thing is the photo colors. Now, notice here there is a color element in my design, in my project. There's a photo there. What Canva does is take all the photos you've added to that slide and gives you related colors. So notice that in this case, the photo has a lot of blue and a little bit of purple connected to it. I changed these elements here to purple because they pull from the kind of purplish, bluish thing you see at the top of this glass building here. But it shows me there's other colors. And so if I want to more closely match that photo, I can just go to the photo color. It's suggesting colors that are, again, going to pull out of this photo here. So if the photo is the center point of your graphic, and then down here is just the default and flat colors, and then you can make changes as you need to. So it's pretty cool. You can also go down here and say, okay, there's already a kind of a mauve or brown here, and I want to change all of those to blue. I could click on that because that's the color I've highlighted. So whatever color I highlight, it'll say, do you want to change all the colors that are this shade to this new color, or just the individual elements you've chosen? So that's a little bit about color. Now, when we're going back over here to shapes, you can see there's line thickness and border thickness. And so if I'm adding a border to this, you can see I can just click there. I don't necessarily use a lot of borders, but you can do that. And then the fonts here, I'm sorry, let me go back over here to graphics. And then I can choose the fonts and change it if I want to, if I have fonts associated with that graphic. And the rest of this is for lettering. So when I go over to lettering, again, an interactive toolbar shows up here at the top, and this allows me to change the lettering. Now, again, notice over here, there are recommended fonts that go with this particular template. there are the last two, or the two fonts that exist on this particular slide already, the recommended fonts for the template that we've used. The last few fonts that we have used for other projects. And then we have, again, our brand kit. And so the brand kit will let me go and say, okay, to be consistent with everything, I'm going to just go click on the brand kit fonts to make sure that they stay the same. And then just like any word processing document, you've got the lettering. You can make the letters bigger or smaller. You got the font color, which we can change to be other things. I can, in some fonts, you can't bold or italicize, like the font that I'm using now, but in others you could. I can underline things. I can also click this button to change everything to lowercase or uppercase. Now, let's go back now to this font and click on it, and it can show you just by clicking this button, it changes everything from lowercase to uppercase. And it's not all fonts, like the font I'm using now. It doesn't have bold, italicized, or lowercase, and so it's just going to stay where it is. Over here moves the lettering to left, right, or center. I can add bullet points and numbered areas. I can also change the lettering distance, and so I can change some of these to be a little further apart or closer together. Now, do remember, when you're presenting, and you're using this for virtual presentations, so let's say I'm going to be sharing with my clients on Zoom, or some other type of desktop sharing, I do not want these letters too closely together. They become too hard to read. I don't want them too small, and I don't want them too close or too crammed in there together. All right, and then you can add effects. Now, I am a little cautious about this. I see agents doing a lot of drop shadow stuff. Drop shadow has not really been in vogue for probably 15, 20 years. It's not, it's just not a good design practice for most projects. Admittedly, there are some things that I do use drop shadow in to give it depth or texture, generally when I am trying to make something feel more retro, or maybe trying to do some word art or something. So for the most part, I don't, but this allows you to do that. And notice that when you choose whatever you've chosen, a new dialog box shows up, and you can just play with it. I just think everybody should go in here. You're not going to break anything. No one's going to see your disaster while you're working on it. That's how we all learned. We went in here and just started creating stuff. And then you can just and edit those things how you want. All right. And then the next thing is animation. And I am with great trepidation showing you this superpower, because you do not want a super animated slide presentation. You don't want 50,000 things moving and twirling and fancy transitions. That is, again, a very old way of doing design. Right now, simple and clean is better. And if you're going to do things, they need to be subtle. So for example, I'm going to go back here, click on my graphics, click on animate, and it brings up a new dialog box with all sorts of animation. Notice when I hover over them, it shows me a sample of what it'll look like in real time. And so I say, okay, fade's okay. And I'm going to go to fade, and then I'm going to show the speed. And if I slow down the speed for hover, it comes more quickly. If I go to the other way, it migrates in a lot slower, a little bit more easy on the eyes. And then I have it, I can either do an enter, or when I exit the slide, I can do it by word, letter, line, contact, or character. We're going to do it by whole element because that's a block group. And I'm going to go back to just looking over some of these. Like this one right here is just super annoying. I don't know why that exists in design world, but this one is a little too slow and subtle, and now I feel like it's coming after me to get me. So you can play with, again, nice subtle transitions tend to work for your presentation. All right. And I'm going to just do one more animation here for this graphic. All right, so we're going to do rise, and I'm going to show you when we get done with our presentation what that looks like. All right. Now, before we, so we did the interaction here. So over here is position. And so position in the top right-hand corner is going to show you, and you have to think about layers. And I love the graphic they actually use in Canva for the layers, because you're thinking about putting one thing on top of another, stacking it. So when I want to add something, so I'm going to add this graphic over here. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab this one here. And I'm going to add this an element here. I know it doesn't go there, but that's okay. We're going to come back to that. And everything has a dialog box. So I clicked on this element that I grabbed over here. We'll talk about how to do that in a minute. Change it white just so you can see it. Now, what I've done is I've laid it on top of the next layer. Again, these things are stackable. When I click on position and I choose go backwards, it moves it behind the element that was here. See, you can see it. It's right here. Change the color back. You can see it. It's right there, right? So I go back and add this element back here, and I choose this element, the one on top, and I say I'm going to move this either backwards, moves it one step, like moving papers underneath each other, or to the back, just puts it on the bottom of the stack. All right, so that's position. And then you'll see this little paintbrush. This will allow me to copy whatever I got going on here so I can add it to a different slide if I will, or I can use transparency. And I use transparency for a lot of different parts of projects, and it just makes that particular element more transparent and makes this one more bold in contrast. And then I can link these, and so I can take all of this and go, okay, this is all done. I'm going to group these things. I've selected them all, and now I move everything in a group that was selected. And when I click on ungroup, I can move each element now by itself, independent of everything else. And so when you build something you like this group here is a good element, I'm just going to click on group, and now it becomes one solid element together. So I don't have to deal with copying, moving, or losing the space of everything else. And so again, and then you have lock where it just doesn't move now. If I click on lock, it doesn't move anymore. I can't just make changes to it. And so I'm going to unlock that because I like control. And then we get, that's our interaction bar at the top. And then at the bottom, you can see I have each of these different slides here in a linear order. I mentioned before about storyboarding. And so one of the things that I find hold back a lot of agents presenting presentations or creating presentations is, they're like, I don't want to put stuff in a certain order, or it doesn't go there, or I'm frustrated with things not being in the place that makes sense in a conversational style. I love that you can just click this button in the top right or top bottom hand corner, which says grid view, and it's going to give you everything in order at a glance. Now I can make these slides a little bigger. I guess I can't in this particular window, but I can move things around. And so my mission and about us, mission and vision are good. My team is here. Our services solution. I'd say our solution to the problem we're going to put last here. And so I can just drag and drop it, and now it's reorganized the stack in grid view. I can also drag and drop here, but in grid view, you get a better idea of where everything is, and you can build your elements there. So when I go back over here to this kind of linear view, you notice that there is a toolbar here. I can lower that so I can just go move up and down through the slides if I want to. Or I can go back and click on that, and now I'm only working on one slide at a time, and this is where I move my slides back and forth. Also note here, when we're looking at the slide, notice I clicked on the slide. This gives us a different dialog box with a background color. I can animate the slide. That would be the entire slide, not just the elements on it. Or I can set a timer. Now, I think this is particularly good if you are running a team or a company maybe, and you have a TV in the front window in front of your office or in the front lobby in front of your office, and you're building a presentation of your listings and services that people will see when they're waiting for you. Or you're doing some type of event where you have a booth at like a harvest festival or something, that you're having a booth to engage consumers and public. You can set this, you can build this and then run it automatically on the TV. And the way we do that is that we set little timers for these slides about how long they're going to last. And so when I go to share, or go to present rather, I can click on autoplay if I've set these timers, and autoplay will move between each slide at a certain number of seconds apart. So again, this is a nice little a project for you if you do have access to the public viewing a screen or a presentation or something, or if you're trying to do something before a meeting and you want some slides to run. That's a pretty neat technique. Even if I put in this slide and say I want it to go for 5 seconds, and I just want all the slides to be 5 seconds, it doesn't automatically progress forward while you're in presentation mode, only when you're using autoplay mode. All right, the next thing to look at while we're here is the notes section. And so the notes section allows you as an agent to add notes about this particular slide so that you can remember what to say. Now, this does not work, in just my opinion, this does not work when you're doing a one-on-one presentation, if you're doing it on your iPad or a laptop or a TV at your client's home or in your office. These aren't very good because when you go to, again, present, it's going to ask you if you want to present with the presenter view. And if you say yes, when it presents, it'll have two different screens or windows. So one you can share, like if you're projecting through an HDMI cable to a TV, the audience, if you're doing like a first-time homebuyer class, for example, they would see your slide, but they would not see your notes. You would see your notes on your computer. If you are trying to do this on a single device without having separate windows, they're going to see your notes. And so less is more. Remember, these slides for your buyer or seller presentations and consultation sessions are for there's triggers to remind you of things and visuals to aid your presentation and storytelling. It's not necessarily a presentation where you have to remember every single word and get all your content out. So don't think that's super valuable in the normal presentation we're talking about here. All right. And then we can change the sides of our slides so we can, get a perspective for what we're working on and see them there. So that's really all for the layout here. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump out of this template. I'm going to go back over here to my projects. So I'm going to go back to my projects, go to my first time home buyer presentation for my clients. And we're going to try not to destroy this in the interest of academics because I kind of like how it looks. And I want to show you a couple things as we're getting into now really design looks, design and appearance here. We're going to build some of these out. Again, I like less content is more, no more than 6 elements. In this case, you see the background is 1 element because there's a picture there. And then my logo is 2 elements. And then I have my words here. Now, if you look at a normal presentation, and they've got a lot of stuff on this slide, and they've got, like this is the agenda. I'm using this as an example. This is not I usually hide the slide, but I unhid it here. In a normal presentation, if you were doing it on a big screen with an audience, this is probably okay to have that many bullet points. I still think that's a lot. And again, no more than 6 elements. If you're doing this on an iPad, if you're doing this by Zoom to your clients, for your clients to see, this is way too much content, way too many words on here. They will be squinting and trying to see it on their phone or iPad or laptop on their side or on yours. So instead, we're going to do something very simple. As I said, when you hover over elements, there are little windows and action items. Notice that there's these 3 little ellipses that pop up, these 3 little dots. So I'm going to click on this, and this gives me the ability to do a couple things with the slide. One, I can duplicate the page. I can make a copy of it. I can delete it. I can hide it, or I can lock it so nothing can be done with it. So I don't accidentally delete it or move it around while I'm working on things. I can also add transitions and things we'll talk about in a second. In this case, I'm going to hide this page. What I did before I hid it, though, is I simply went here and I duplicated the page. I made a copy. And I'm going to go and delete everything in here except for that 1 word, or 1 line rather. And I'm just going to make that super, super duper big. So what I'm doing now is I'm not getting rid of that content that I had over here with my agenda items, with letting and during my consultation, it's important to let my consumer know what we're going to be talking about and where we're going to be going. But instead, I've created one of those. Each one of those lines is now going to be a separate slide. And I just kept duplicating the slide, and deleting one of the lines and making the other ones bigger. So now I took all of those things. I just made each one a separate slide, and I can quickly go through and say, buyer, hey, we're going to go through a couple of things here to get you ready before you even see your first home. We want to make sure we're on the same page and that you know what you're in for. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to cover your needs and talk about what you need. We're going to talk about the home buying process and a refresher, because maybe it's been a while since you purchased, or in this case, you've never purchased. We're talking about how we can uniquely help you, what the market looks like, what you need to be prepared, and some things we can provide for you to be prepared, and then what the next step is after we've met. Notice that I went through that very quickly. That's all that I'm doing here. I'm just going through those slides quickly with them to set the agenda and set the table for them. And then we go to, let's talk about how we can help you, which is where I give them an opportunity to just chat. What's motivating them to buy? What does your process look like so far? What does your ideal home look like? What is influencing your timeline? These are prompts to help me to ask some questions. It's prompts for them to focus on what's coming next and to chat a bit. And then we get into how I can help you. And you can't start with, here's how I'm going to help you, without finding out what they need help with. So we give them a chance to talk first. Then I talk about my mission statement, and I give them a couple highlights about myself. And then I go into my team. Now, again, there's a lot more to this, but I'm just going to dwell kind of on these slides because this will give us a principle for creating the stuff. And again, we're focused here on the actual creation part of it, not necessarily anything else. So I'm going to go to this. Now I got a blank slide here. And when I get a blank slide, remember I can go over here to styles, and I can change everything on this, either this slide or the whole presentation, to match my style. Or I can just click this button, square button here, and it gives me the colors to choose from, and I can go from there. We're gonna talk for a couple of minutes about adding content and items here. And there's a bunch of different things that can be added in Canva to your slides. So I'm going to go to elements here. And when I go to elements, I can scroll down and see different categories. So I can see what I've recently used and added. I can see lines and shapes. I can see different types of graphics, tables, photos, videos, audio files, charts, stickers, frames, and all the rest. Now, notice that next to these sections, you see a see all. So we're going to start here. We're going to scroll down here to frames and grids. Now, a frame, anything that you see kind of this Teletubby sky and these green hills with, is something that is a placeholder for another graphic. So I'm going to go ahead and add, I'm just going to add a circle here. I like circles. So I'm going to add a circle here. Now that I have this frame, again, with the Teletubby, blue sky, green grass, I can go over to whatever I've uploaded, pictures or graphics, and I can add just by dragging them over and dropping them on that frame. Now that frame is there, it makes sure I don't have to put a mask. That's what you call it if you're using InDesign or Photoshop or Illustrator, any of those things. I don't have to deal with a mask, and I can do them in different shapes. So I'm going to go back up to elements, I'm going to go back to frames and click all and see a whole bunch of frames, a whole bunch of stuff here. And so these different shapes, let's do this squiggly line one here. This allows me to then add space, or add a frame here. I'm going to go back over here to uploads, and I can click on, well, we'll just do this again. Now, notice that when I drag it over there, it doesn't look great, but we're just learning here, right? It doesn't line up. My head's being cut off. So I can double click on it, and then I can move the picture within the frame here. And so now I've got kind of this crazy laughing Batman Joker looking thing going on here. And that's my frame. Now, if I go add over here, see my brand kit, this has already got my templates here, or I can add different things. All right, so when I go over here, you can see I can just go add regular text from my brand kit here, or I can add a text box. And text box just puts a regular old text box here. And then again, once I click on it, it gives me these interactive windows, so I can go change whatever I want in there. And I can put Matthew Rathman here. All right. And then I'm just going to go ahead and change this to about 110. Oops, not 800. All right. And we'll change this to about 90, not 900. All right. And so now I've got some graphics here. Okay. Now, if you want to get really kind of crazy about it. You can add some of these other fancy pre-made things. So I'm going to go here. And that looks exactly horrible, but you get the picture. I can just go add those elements and then get rid of them when I realize what a mistake I made. No one will see your mistakes. All right. So anyways, that's how you use the fonts over here. And again, I got this here and I want to really change it to one of my other fonts for my system so they match. I can do that here and then add bolding and capital letters and all that good stuff. All right. And then we can do other elements. So we go back to elements. We've done the filler window. We've done our fonts. I can add, let's say I want to get an arrow. I can just go do a search for arrow and it's going to come up and go, do you want a shape or a graphic, or do you want photos, or what do you want? So I'm going to go over here to graphics and I'm going to add this little arrow. Now notice that the arrow is kind of pointing the wrong direction, right? We want the arrow to point towards the picture of the person we're naming. I can make it larger or smaller by dragging the button. I can click on and hold down this little circle button, and it gives me the ability to kind of adjust the direction of it. And I can go up here, remember our little magic line here, click on flip and click flip horizontal, and it just switches it around. And so now I'm going to go put that there, right? Now I'm starting to get like a nice little presentation going on here. Nice little slide for my presentation. Now there are things you can do like animated elements. Remember, animated elements, this is not your LinkedIn stories with your crazy drunk posts. So you don't want a lot of stickers or a lot of animated stuff here when you're on the slide because it becomes distracting. So unless that slide's moving by really quick, like if you do the preset slides we talked about earlier, maybe you want those. But for most of our presentations, our professional presentations, we don't want a whole lot of animation. It just doesn't look great. And again, it's distracting. So go back to elements here. Now, let's say that I've got a listing presentation I'm doing, and I want to show them some examples of my past work. So I'm going to move this stuff up, and I'm going to go back over here to, in this case, grids. So what grids do is they allow me to put multiple things in, multiple elements in one holder, like a collage. So I'm going to just choose any old one here. I'm getting a little picky now. I shouldn't be. And I'm going to say, these are my listing history. So I've got these graphics. I'm going to uploads where I uploaded the houses and the things that I put in there. And just for grins and giggles, I'm going to put in, I'm just going to drag and drop them in there. And now I've got a nice little grid with some pictures. Everything's spaced for me and sized for me. I don't have to do all the work and all the masking to get that done like we do in other products. All right. So now that we have the grids things, let's talk about some more meaty things we want to add. All right. I'm going to go down here to, I'm going to elements, and I'm going to go down to charts. And I'm going to click on all. So I want to talk about consumer activity in the marketplace. And I'm going to say, all right, let's say we're doing this. So I've added from charts this little group of people. Now, first you need to understand there are bar charts and line charts and pie charts and infograph charts and just other charts. And when I have this chart open, I'm using a pictogram, and I can change this to anything. I can make this number of cars or stars or people. I'm going to stick with people here. When I double click on the infogram that I've selected, I'm going to say in this case that I want them a little spaced out. Again, we're doing this presentation with people who may have old eyes. I don't want things crammed together. I don't really like the color, so I'm going to go over here and choose this color. I do like the color. I'm going to go back to that color, but let's say I don't like the gray people here. So I'm going to go from here and choose, we'll just say white. When I double click on it again, it's going to say, how many people do you want? Well, I'm going to say, okay, I want 10 people is good. And I want to show my consumers that 7 out of 10 people have had to do price reductions within the first couple of days of selling. And I don't want them to have to be people who have to do that. So I'm going to add this little infograph chart here to show them that. And I'm going to add another one here. And this infograph chart, it's just going to let me know what percentage. And so I can just change the percentage and it'll show me that in the past, I've gotten 99% of asking price over the past 5 years of my listing, right? And so I now have these two graphics. And so I'm going to go back over here to elements. I'm just going to add this over here. I don't know. What did we say? 73% of your neighbors had to reduce their price. Okay. I'm going to duplicate this. So and over here, when I clicked on it again, you can see that there's these little, I can link this to something. I can change the transparency of it, make it fade in and out. I can copy the style or I can position it. Now, copying the style means if I add something different, if I add a new text box and it's a different graphic, I can go here and go, I really like this. I'm going to copy the style here and I'm going to use the paintbrush and click here. And now it changes whatever I just added to what I had before. And then I'm going to say, all right. And so I'm going to make these points here. And this is kind of, I would not suggest spending a lot of time talking to your sellers about this unless they're really struggling with the math. But now I've got these two things. I'm going to highlight both of them. And then I'm just going to make them larger to fill up that space. And now I've made myself a nice little info graph or reference chart here. And notice what I'm doing when I'm holding down, the box turns purple for that element. It is lining and centering with the text over top, and it is aligning with the bottom of the graphic to the left. So now it's going to look nice and appealing to anybody who's looking. I'm going to select this whole project and move it over so it's now centered, and then boom, we're done. All right. Now there's some more fun you can have here, and I'm only going to show one more fun thing in this just for time because you need to play with this on your own. But I'm going to get rid of all of this. I'm going to go down here to frames. And if I scroll down far enough, you're going to see numbers and letters here. So I'm going to go Matthew or just Matt. We'll just do that. M-A-T and T. Now, again, you're like, okay, that's just a hot mess. So I'm going to select all this. Now watch this. When I go over here to position, I've selected all of the elements I just added. I'm going to go to position, and I'm going to choose to space them evenly vertically and horizontally. And then I'm going to just tidy it up. So now it's all in alignment. And then I can center them, or I can justify to the left or the right. Right. And so when I do that, it starts seeing some mess here. Notice they're still on top of each other. And that the Canva thought that was probably that I did on purpose because I aligned them all. So I'm going to make that happen again. I'm going to go position. I'm going to make sure they're all even and vertical so that they all line up like they're supposed to. Okay. And now that I've done that, oops, I just screwed that up. It was right before I got there. All right. So now that it's there and I've got this, I'm going to go back to my uploads and say I've added some stuff in the community. So I are from the community. So I'm trying to sell them on, I don't know, this home. All right. And so that's a little bit of word art. I just wanted to kind of play with that and show you because I think that whole thing is very cool. I think that the letter with the different fillers in there for the graphics and then also tidying things up is a very cool part of tricks for this. All right. Now we can also do tables. So you can go down here if you want to put some type of chart or table in there. You can copy and paste out of Excel spreadsheet or Google or whatever you're using for your spreadsheet. You can copy and paste it right into the slide and it'll look great. Stickers. Again, this is not your fun Instagram page, so I would stay away from stickers, but stickers are animated. They're like little GIFs that go on there. And then you can find collections of things for whatever you're looking for. And so if you want to find a house collection, you can do just that. And it's going to give you a bunch of different things to choose from, and all sorts of photos and videos and frames and charts and stuff that they have. They have houses in there. All right. Because every agent says, I want to be unique, but also they want houses and hearts and keys and all of their presentation materials. So anyways, those are a few of the elements that you can add and you can use in there. Now that's, again, that is some basic adding content and pages to your presentation. Now, I do want you, again, to kind of think about the end first, if you will. So what do I want this to look like and what do I add elements? Use some templates. So once you use some templates, you can get to feel for it and maybe start adding or editing your own things if you want to. Now, when you're done with your presentation and you've created all the pages and used all the templates and added all the things that you want to add, a couple things I would suggest. First is go up here to share, click on more, and then it's going to give you a whole bunch of places. You can embed this presentation in a website. You can share it on social media. You can create a QR code for your presentation for people to scan. There's a whole bunch of cool things you can do after this kind of basic tutorial. You get your hands in there. I mean, you can create a QR code with your animated presentation so people can scan it and get this cool little thing. It's pretty awesome. But I would suggest going down here and saving it as a Microsoft PowerPoint file. So again, you're going to be, for the most part, you're going to be doing these presentations by Zoom or remotely for relocation clients or for first-time meetings or whatever it is. But you want to have a backup in case you're doing it and you don't have internet access or something fails or you need to email it to somebody. That'll give you the ability to do that, putting it in PowerPoint or even PDF. The other thing I want to do, and I want to show you this with a backup. So I'm going to go over here. This is the one we were working with earlier to kind of make up. This is a pro version solution, just again to point that out. But I've created my slides and I love the content. I put a lot of work into getting them all just right and looking pretty. And I also want to create a book, a PDF, if you will, for the client. I can go up here, now that this is all created and done, I can go up here to resize, and I'm going to go choose, in this case, letter, and I'm going to copy my presentation and resize, and it creates a new presentation where I now have a PDF formatted book. I can print this out or I can share it or do whatever. Now notice it's still in the 16:9 frame, so you're going to have to spend some time spacing all this out and making it look good. It's not really that much work. You've already created the content. Now it's just the design and layout for your materials so it fills the page a little bit better and not just looking 16:9 in the middle. Right, and you can see how easy it is to move this stuff around and resize and do all the stuff we did. And all the things we learned about using presentations work for everything in Canva, no matter whether you're creating a social content piece or you're creating a manual. All of those work real well. And then again, you would want to create, imagine you would want to create a version of this for maybe mobile phone. So mobile first presentation. This is something that, knowing that 74% of our consumers use their iPhone or their Android phone as part of the home buying search, you want content that's going to fit on their screen. And so this takes all that content, resizes it, and I can spend just a few minutes to go make it look like I want it to look on their phone. Right? And so now they have a little mobile version of it that's appropriate for their phone. So that's it. That is the in and out. And you could spend a lot more time. There's a bunch of other tricks and resources in there that we didn't touch on, but I wanted to give you enough to be able to create a solid presentation using Canva. And if you have any questions, you have my contact information. Feel free to reach out. Be happy to help. Thanks so much. So that is it. That is Canva presentations. Again, it's an overview. Get in there and play with it. Find templates that work for you or start from scratch if you'd like to. It's really not that hard. It's actually a lot of fun. And I hope you've taken away a few tips about the way that Canva presentation works that will help you grow more meaningful professional presentations and visual assets for your meetings with your clients or whatever you choose to use. Thanks so much for watching.